I'll be talking about an aspect of grafting that's not common, which is, where did I put that? Right over here. Maintaining a genetic rootstock that you cannot have if you don't know how to make hybrids. And indeed probably still couldn't have because you wouldn't know how they created maxifort, which is what we're going to be using, or any of the other ones. But what we can do is clone it. So at least for as many cells as we have here, as we cut off, these are our rootstocks here. I'll explain that all to you more in a little bit. But as we cut them off, we're going to stick them in soil, and tomatoes, as you know, will easily root. So we're going to regrow them. Now that's not going to be that easy because you're going to try and graft plants that you're starting from seed onto them. Unless, see, should we no longer have access to hybrids, if you maintain this genetic rootstock by cloning it, you could then also at the same time root the tops of heirlooms, and hopefully they would grow equally, and you could do it that way. Or you could just try and time the seeds, so over years you'd probably be able to figure it out. But this year, once we graft them, we should have astounding yields. We already have great systems. We've made wonderful soil using biochar and compost tea, soil that's almost as productive as native prairie soils. And if we can combine that with these genetics, and then the technology of, which we're going to have a workshop on this year, the technology of the spools that or the little pulleys you can drop your plants down with and grow them up high. Putting those all together make for massive yields. And so this is the next piece, and we've been waiting on this piece. It's frankly been a little daunting. The hardest part is vision. It's very hard to see something this small, and so I actually was hopeful and bought this, which is great if you're sewing, but it doesn't really work as well for, But we might eventually make a jig so that this can be set up. It's set up to have both a light and a magnifier, And if you can do that, but it's easier said than done to have something between you and what you're doing. Even though it may seem easier, I may get used to it, but so far what I've used this for was to check my grafts afterwards and see if they were touching, which is pretty important. I mean, it's critical. If they're not touching, you've failed, And it's very easy to be just slightly off, Okay, so I'm not going to go into all those techniques right now. First I'm going to talk about the theory and what you can expect from it. And I can say, quite honestly, there are reports of having it gotten yields of 50% more. I don't know that we kept track or we started them soon enough that we can say we've accomplished that yet, but we're shooting for that goal. And this is one class I didn't have to do a handout for because Johnny's has an incredibly comprehensive handout that you get when you buy the supplies. If anybody didn't think they were going to buy the supplies and wanted me to copy this, I could copy it for you. But they'll send it to you when you buy the supplies. And it's probably online anyways. They probably have it posted online, so you can just look it up. Okay, so does everybody understand the basic concept of what we're doing? Right, we're taking a very vigorous rootstock, which makes pretty uninteresting cherry tomatoes, right? And we're taking that bottom for rootstock, and we're grafting highly productive hybrids for greenhouses, and in this case, heirlooms. See, right now we're not doing the hybrids because I actually don't want to waste anything. And we have a farm in Florida, and once I graft these, I'm going to actually once we graft them, so I'm hoping you're very good, right? I'm going to try and get these to finish, grow them nice and big so that come early March they can be planted in Florida. So they're not into hybrids because they're just growing for the staff and stuff. So these are all heirlooms. And so we're going to want to keep real careful track of which ones they are. And we'll be doing everything in this, so we'll then just transfer the labels to the flat that we're doing it into, which will be this one here. So on one side, we'll have our grafted tomatoes. On the other side, for this little bit of soil we have, we'll just stick our tops in until we run out of them. Then we might actually stick them in a plastic bag, and I'll see if I can keep them going otherwise. And that's just an experiment. If we don't pull off the top saving, it's no loss. I've got the rest of my life to figure that out, So the reasons for doing this, probably the biggest reason, the reason why it got developed, was for greenhouses, because in greenhouses it's very hard to have enough rotation, and diseases are very easy to build up without rotation. Most organic farmers that I know with the exception of Phytophthora capsicii, which is a soil-borne water mold in the same family as downy mildew and late blight. You all know how nasty those diseases are. Persistent soil disease, nobody gets away from that. Though our soils have actually contained it. It hasn't spread, and we may have gotten away from it. I'm not going to swear, but it almost seems like we have. But that's almost too good to be true. Basically, it's a really hard disease, so you want to avoid getting it. But except for that disease, most of the growers I know don't have a lot of problem with soil diseases, unless they're in a greenhouse. And even though we have really good systems, this year with our high production and a little drop off in our tea because of other projects, compost tea, we actually saw Fusarium attacking our tomatoes in the greenhouse. Now we got told by our pathologist, who's a wonderful pathologist, but who doesn't particularly believe in organic, that we couldn't do anything about that, that my solution of compost tea and trichoderma, which is an antagonistic fungus you can buy, wasn't going to work. It did. We stopped the disease, and it didn't cure the plants that had it, in that they got vigorous and healthy again, but they didn't get worse. They actually lingered for the rest of the year. Everything says we should have pulled them out, but I was doing an experiment. It didn't. They were not a source of infection. They didn't spread it. All we had to do was get back to our compost tea regime, and we solved it. Why I think it happened was because of the massive production. You know, the demand. I mean, literally, I could pull my phone up, and I will at the end of the class, and show you. When our pathologist was identifying this, her and our extension agent were marveling at the one hand of tomatoes, like the one cluster, right? And there were several of these actually, 10 full-size tomatoes in a cluster. You know, that kind of production puts incredible stress on a plant. Had it been on the Maxifort rootstock, quite possibly we would not have seen any disease. So we're using biology, right? We're using compost. We're using best practices in every way. The next best practice is the ideal genetics. Maxifort is the ideal rootstock genetics, but of course not for our taste buds, the ideal top genetics. You know? So later on, we'll go to our greenhouse varieties. But right now, we're going to be working with the heirlooms. You know? And I think that explains also why we had the kind of growth we had. It was quite surprising to me. I started these at the same time. And indeed, Johnny's tells you when I reviewed it, which I haven't done yet because I've been lucky, but they tell you should do a trial and start some early to see if there are differences. The difference was huge. These guys just did not respond to the low light. They were way smaller. They were lacking nitrogen. They couldn't deal with the cool. They're designed for heat. This is the rootstock to use if you're going to have a hot, long crop. You know? And so I had to go ahead and get a fancy light, which fortunately I owned, and put them under that and bring them along to where they're now ready to go with these. Whereas these, the heirlooms, they're such generalists that they're like, okay, you don't want me to have any light? I guess I'll grow anyways, you know? And so these were all started on December 19th, I'm pretty sure. And I have a date on, pardon?
December 19th.
Yeah, December 19th, yeah. Which I thought was way ahead. I thought I was going to do waves of them, but that's because I haven't started them at this season before. I've only started them experimentally for summer, and I just hadn't factored in the difference of the winter sun, you know, which I should have, you know, but I didn't.
What light did you put them under?
It's a high pressure sodium.
HPS.
Yeah, that I only got because somebody needed the money. You know, I didn't really. This is the first time I've ever used it.
Yeah.
You know, it just they needed the money and they made it such a good deal, and a friend asked me to help them out, and so I did. You know,
How many watts was it?
it's only like 400.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a fancy one. You know, you probably couldn't grow a successful illicit crop with it.
Yeah.
You know, but you can green up some tomatoes.
Yeah,
you know,
of course. How close did you have
I didn't have it that close. I didn't want them to go crazy. I mean, I know that the closer it is, it'll be better, but they're about that far apart. I did put Mylar around it, and anybody who says you've signed your release who wants to go down and see that after the class, I can show you. It's kind of an icy walk, so I don't want to really encourage that, but if you want to.
18 inches?
No, more like about, I guess it's more like 2 foot, you know, 18 inches, it might be, yeah. Okay. Eyeballing it might have been more like that, yeah, you know. I just eyeballed it. You know, I looked at the light and thought that's enough, and it was. These guys came along, they're pretty close now, you know. But that was all done. There wasn't a formula. I just was watching them every day, you know. And I stopped when all the snow on the roof caused there to be water dripping, and I didn't want it to hit that bulb. You know? I was just like, oh, I'm turning this off. You know, I had it on timer. I was giving them 20 hours, you know, 20 hours of light, you know. Yeah, well, if you're using lights, you might as well.
Yeah.
They're not the sun. And for any, you know, if you're growing seedlings in general under lights, I recommend at least 20 hours.
Yeah, okay.
21, 22 is fine. You know, the plants don't need a very long dark. You know, they work great up in the land of the midnight sun, They do really well, so they figure out how to take care of respiration and photosynthesis at the same time, Anyway, that was what we had to do for this. So you get disease resistance is probably the main reason that people got into it, right? Because greenhouse tomato growers is a huge problem, right? Even if you rotate, how much can you rotate? Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, maybe eggplant. There aren't that many greenhouse crops that are worth the infrastructure. It's your most expensive land, so you're not going to grow a whole lot of different crops, So your rotation is going to be pretty small. Now, we did a class on brassicas, and for that, I brushed up on my research, and you can do things like growing brassicas as a cover crop, which work as a fumigant, and that can help. There's things you can do, and of course the compost tea, the trichoderma, all those things can help. But you always do all three legs of the stool, right? So you do best soil practices, best microbial enhancement, and feed and nutritional enhancement, right? Amendments and all that, and best genetics. And so best genetics here have to be, probably they're never going to try and make a tomato that has both the maxifort, vigor, and the flavor and stuff on the top in production. It's probably too big a jump genetically and just too much work when grafting can happen instead, And interestingly, I don't know if you know it, I still memorize the name of it, but there's a new structure. Do people know this area at all? Okay.
This area?
Do you know this area? No. Okay. Well, if you were to leave this farm and head that way, right, you'd be coming on the south side of the Van Wingerden greenhouses, which is this largest, right before you get to them, there's a new greenhouse. It's not Van Wingerden. It's an Israeli company that bought the land. It's going to be employing a whole lot of employees, and they're going to be grafting plants for the Northeast, for farmers.
Grafting plants? Specifically tomatoes?
No, I bet they're going to be doing, I haven't seen anybody doing it. Johnny's isn't offering it. But in Japan and places, they're doing cucumbers. They're doing squash,
Really?
They're doing those other things. And I thought, I might play with grafting I don't even know if it'd work, but the vigor of a loofah, and then put, something that I really like on it, and then let it run on a fence. I mean, I could see that, it'd be fun to play with that, Yeah. So, those kind of things could happen in the future, but starting off with tomatoes is probably a real good bet,
I wonder if they're doing conventional. It's a conventional program.
I would bet it is. Yeah, that'd be my bet. The market for conventional is a lot bigger than it looks like a for-profit company. It doesn't look like it's there for the cause,
Yeah.
So I'm going to bet they may eventually develop an organic, and like
Subsidiary.
Van Wingerden actually, doesn't use much in the way of pesticides because they figured out biological control and other things. At least that's what I last heard. They backed way off on their pesticides. And so they might discover too that you can do that, and that it might save them money, and I think at least have way less, at least I heard. I don't even know if that's really true, but that's what I heard, And I know as an organic grower that it's just not that hard. You don't need a lot of chemicals to grow great seedlings, I mean, we've never had a problem with seedlings at all until 2-3 years ago when in the heat of the summer, we're starting so many seedlings for the gardens that give, we started to get downy mildew on our brassicas, And that's the first time we've ever had any problem with seedlings as far as disease goes. Just not, not an issue. I mean, just excellent soil, good compost in the soil, and they're just not there long enough to get sick. If you give them a good basic nutritional start plus the acquired immune response that you can get from good compost, that's acquired systemic immune response. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, so number one is disease resistance. But they also discovered that these are more vigorous rootstocks, greater yields, possibly as much as 50% greater. If it's 10% greater, it's a huge difference if you're doing it for money. You may not notice that if you're a home grower, but if it's 25, you'll notice it. And that could be a huge difference if you're a home grower and you have to deal with late blight. Because you may actually get enough crop in the window before the late blight hits that you don't mind as much when your plants get taken down by late blight, And once again, of course, the solution to that is genetics. A big solution for us anyways is to use the resistant plants that Johnny sell and that were developed here at the research station. That really is, I think, the right direction to go. There's spray routines. We cover that heavily in our disease video, which is on the web, And also I want to mention there's a few other resources on the web that you can use for this class. And that is, once you have these grafted and they come out of a high humidity situation, we're going to talk about how to create those a few different ways, right? Then you've got to move them. You know, usually if you're creating that humidity, you can maintain the temperature you need because you need the heat to get the humidity. And that's 82 degrees, right? So I got a couple different ways I'm going to recommend doing that. One way you can see, and if anybody wants to see it and is ready to brave the ice, is to make a germination chamber. I'm not going to describe that here because we've described it on the web. If somebody wants to talk to me about it after the class, I'll be happy to describe it. It's pretty simple, okay? But germination chamber is pretty ideal. You can set the temperature, because there's a thermocouple you have in the air, you can set the exact temperature you want, you know? Almost exact. I can get it between 80 and 84 degrees. They say to do 82. That works good enough, you know? I mean, any number, if they thought it had to be more precise than that, they'd make a big deal about it because everybody's thermometers are way off anyways, you know? A margin of error of 4 degrees is probably not that great, you know? It hasn't been for us. Actually, interestingly, I have two flats next to each other, and one is 81 and one is 84, but neither are 82, you know? It just has to do with how close they are to the source of the heat, you know? And so I'd probably need a fan. That'd be the solution to get the exact temperature, you know? The problem is you can't have a fan unless you had a dome on it, which you can have. Here they are, these plastic domes, you know, then you could have a fan in there. But otherwise, you couldn't because, you know, you can't have any wind or strong light when they're, I mean, these things are very delicate when they're grafted. So you just can't have that kind of stress, you know. Eventually, when they get stronger, you could slowly part that cap, you know. But the problem is, no, you couldn't, because by then you'd have to have it out of there. You can't have these in intense humidity forever. If they sit in that intense humidity, because a germination chamber is 100% humidity. It's designed to be a steamy shower at all times, you know. It's only meant for seeds to germinate. You're really kind of misusing it in this situation. And if you were to try and leave it in there for the whole process, maybe put lights in there somehow so that you could keep that temperature, you'd have a problem because eventually where the wound is would start to make adventitious roots. You know, it would go away from the graft and go to trying to just grow itself, you know, rather than melding with this, you know, somewhat foreign thing that it has to depend on at the moment, you know. So you couldn't really do that. So there's then at that stage, you have to go to other infrastructure. And the easy infrastructure is just go buy yourself a heat mat, and one that can be easily adjusted. There are some that are set at 72 or something. That's not going to work. You need one that's, you know, more expensive that has the thermostat and all that. Or if you want to cheat and save money, I figured this out as a brewer because I didn't want to heat my whole house, which I keep very cold, because I don't want the things we're teaching you to be necessary. You know, so I don't think I should use a lot of fuel. And I love my house. I'm very grateful to have it, so I don't have to drive back to Silo every day. But it has a heat pump, which is a very brilliant thing with the right temperature, and about the stupidest way in the world to heat without the right temperature. So I keep it at 50, which doesn't work for beer unless you're doing lagers, which I'm not very good at, and doesn't work for grafting or bread making, all the kind of things I like to do, fermenting vegetables. So I figured out that this little aquarium heater, submersible aquarium heater, will heat up to 60 gallons. Whatever I want to heat, I can put in whatever size cooler I need, right? I can drop this into a cooler, right? Or not even use it. If the cooler is waterproof, I don't even need this, you know, for that stage, right? And then I just set this in here and set it at the temperature, you know, which is a little longer than possible, because this is relatively cheap, but it doesn't give you numbers. You got to play with it. But within a half an hour, 45 minutes, you'll have it figured out, you know. And you just set that to that, and very low energy if you use a cooler. And yet it'll give you the temperature you want. And the humidity, you know, I would just close that cooler when I wanted humidity for the early part, when I didn't want light, you know. And then pretty ideally for this, I just start cracking the cooler open, reducing the humidity and getting it used to a little bit of light, you know. And they have a precise formula for that, but I haven't really followed the formula. I've just slowly introduced them to light, you know, intuitively, and it's worked fine. Lots of times directions, it's really hard to say, you know, you'll figure this out, you know, use your intuition, you know, your experience with plants. And I just base it on whether or not they start to wilt, you know. If they start to wilt, I back off. That's hard to tell people. People don't want to hear that. So giving precise instructions, you know, which are probably the very best, but I'm not that. I'm not focused enough to follow those and keep it that exact, you know, so I just kind of do it by the eyeball way. But there's a certain point where you're going to want more light, but not the full strength of sunlight, so then you do have to use a lamp, and that lamp I talked about is too strong. You know, then what I use is a shop light with a cool and a warm bulb, and those you can easily control the intensity simply by how close they are, you know. So you just figure out how close they are. And I don't have a meter to check the intensity of the light. Once again, I play with it just by eyeballing it, you know. But these plants have to start getting light eventually, because even though they've healed over now, they're going to be totally weak if they don't get the light, and they're not going to be able to take the really strong light if you just try and move them right from being grafted into the strong light. So you ease them with that light. So that's what I recommend, is simply a shop light, you know, and I put it on a timer, you know, and I just increase the time on a regular basis, you know. In about a week, you'd probably be to full light, you know, full light from this, you know, and then eventually by that time you should be getting real close. The clips, at least the one kind, I'll show you them since we started talking about them. The kind I actually thought I wouldn't prefer, but they seem so much harder, and I really don't like, they just seem cheap compared to the other ones, which seem so much easier and fancier. And I don't like that you have to really practice to get them to open up evenly. You have to get your fingers just right. But what's good about them is they're more minimal. They're less in the way. You don't see them as much. And they'll drop off. You don't need to take them off, you know. So ultimately, which is like, you could be busy and lose track. And so all of a sudden you're constricting your plant. It's trying to grow, and it's got this, you know, so this is actually much more convenient. But you have to learn to get it right. I'm getting pretty good at it now. That's pretty even. If you get it anywhere but the exact middle, you don't get an even opening, you know. You can see why I said the hardest part is eyesight, you know. It really is the total challenge on this, you know. And actually, this year, I'm going to teach the younger farmers here, because I assume their eyes are better than mine.
What is that made of?
This is, I'm pretty sure it's silicone. And so these are cheaper, and I actually like them more minimally. These here seem so much easier, and I can get much more precise. You know, you can open them up as much as you want, but they're in the way. I mean, they're easy to see, but it's hard to see the plant because of all that excess stuff, you know. So I surprised myself. I thought these, you know, I thought get the best. There's a reason why, you know, but I actually like the other ones more. I've used both work, but I'm a bigger fan of the other ones. Okay, there's a bunch of pieces before you get ready. I mean, really, and we actually might take one of those chairs, because I've learned that I find it easier not to have to bend over, but to have it more right at my exact eye level. In the greenhouse where I usually do this, I use a bale of peat. I set the bale of peat on the table, and that puts it right at the right eyesight for me, you know. But I'm sure you can find something. Make sure it's stable. You don't want to be thinking about keeping anything balanced. You want to be able to focus on nothing but the grafting, you know. One key thing that I neglected the first time I did it, because I didn't read the instructions, but I thought, oh, I remembered them all, and of course I didn't, is you be sure to water your flats well the day before. You cannot water them the day of, because the amount of water they uptake will be enough to push the graft apart, you know. So if you realize you didn't water them well, wait till the next day and water them again. This time of year, that's a little more forgiving, because it's very wet. Things are slow to dry out, you know. But they're counting on not having to water again until the graft has begun to take, you know. And then it's only bottom watering with these, I say, until you put them in the ground. Last year, I got to try 3 tomatoes because I thought they were thoroughly taken. And I was carefully bottom watering them. And then I came into the greenhouse, and somebody else had not gotten back when they thought they would, and the greenhouse was totally wilted and dried out. And I just did the grab the hose and, you know, because I had to be someplace else. And then I came back later, and there were most of my grafts knocked off. You know, they can't take that at all, you know. And of course, they weren't in my mind at all. Then it was like save the greenhouse, you know, just water everything, get to my appointment, you know. And so it just doesn't work. Set them where you can't make that mistake. They would have been better off to go dry. You know, they wouldn't have died. The other guy would have gotten there. I could have called him and said, I got everything but check the tomatoes, you know. And they would have done better. You know, so I would keep these separate so you don't make the mistake when you're in a hurry and accidentally water overhead. They can't take it, you know. I mean, even though I thought they were well, I had taken the clips off because I hadn't remembered that part either, you know. I read the draft, I had it all. I thought I had to take them off. They all took off, and they were fine. They weren't falling over. They were growing even, you know. But still, hitting them with that blast of water was enough to break the still fragile graft and knock them off, you know. So you want to be sure to water from the bottom, water the day before, you know. Don't do any fertilizer or anything like that. You're not trying to get rapid growth. You want these two guys to go slow, you know. I think they figure, you can read, when you get it, you can read it. I think they figure you're going to add 2 weeks to your production to make this happen, you know, to get them back to where they're, you know, growing up to where you can transplant them, you know. I personally say more like 2.5, just to be sure, you know. And if they're further along, I can put them in sooner, you know. But I always try to leave a nice window that way, you know. And a trick I've learned is if I don't think that things are quite ready, you should have a well-developed root ball by then. You can actually lift out the root ball, only grabbing the rootstock, right? Not grabbing the top, because you'll pull it off again, right? And just drop a bit more soil in the bottom of each cell if you need to go a little longer, and let them grow that way, you know, rather than trying to step them all up, which is way too much work. You know, if you have these in really good condition so that the root balls are well taken and you water them really well from the bottom, right? They should slip out really quickly and easily. It'll take you maybe 10 minutes for a flat to just do that quick, you know. That'll give you a half week easy, you know, and a somewhat stronger plant. You know, you don't want to, with tomatoes, you really don't want to, you know, delay in a way that you bring them into senescence. If they start flowering, they're way more vulnerable to disease. You're losing some of the vigor. You're sending the plant in the wrong direction. You can bring it back with a really good feed when you first put them in. I've certainly done that a ton of times, you know, but it's not best practice at all, you know, so you want to try to avoid that happening. How are we doing for time? Okay, we got still plenty of time. All right, so they make the point to, you know, do what I have yet to do, which is to grow some of your seeds, you know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before or something of what you plan on growing, so you get to see exactly how they're growing. So you may change the timing. You may sow the heirlooms. In this case, I would have sowed later, you know, and the maxi-forts I would have sown probably a week earlier. They were that far behind. It might have been 10 days earlier. I probably would have played with it, you know, and done some at both times. They were way behind. They really didn't like those cold conditions, whereas and these guys, obviously, it's not like the seed was more vigorous. I mean, I seeded this a full flat. These were old, saved heirloom seeds, and I'm glad to get.
These were started the same day?
Started the same day.
These should have been a week earlier, and these probably should have been a week later.
Well, no, 2 weeks is probably, no, probably.
That's too much?
No, I probably just would have done these 10 days earlier, you know, and that would have done it, you know. Yeah, I think that would have done it, you know. But you're going to learn with that, you know, that's just my call. It may still have been, but the good news is you can tweak it with something like a light, you know, and that's, I mean, and they don't say that in there, but you learn as a grower, you know, that you've got many tools, you know, and so you need to be ready to jump on those kind of things and change it if you have to, you know. Getting them to the key size, and if you don't get them to the key size, you got some leeway still, because the plants are thicker and thinner towards the top, and you can play with that. Now, I played with that extremely one time, in that I went for a thicker bottom and a very thin top. The problem is I had such a little stump that even though I got the graft to work, the plant fell over, and it was very hard to get it to come back up. You know, I got probably 25% of those to work, you know. So you can only push that so far. You know, you have to look at the structure of the plant, you know, and make sure you're getting it right, you know. And actually, as Johnny says, that if you're playing with that, you should do it, you know, above the cotyledons, you know. But there is an issue too, and why should they probably say that is because what I was doing by cutting down so low to get a thicker bottom on the rootstock, just ignore right now for showing that this is the actual rootstock, you know. Pretending this is the rootstock and it's easier to see. You can see that's thicker there, and I had plants that were further ahead, and so I wanted to be able to get them onto that thicker rootstock, so I went way low. Even the ones that I got to take, I then had to be very careful because they're close enough to ground. They're easily going to send out roots and defeat the whole purpose of grafting.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, if you'd said earlier that when you make that graft, if you keep them too wet, that these the top will start rooting. All of the grafts there, the top will start sending out roots. Is that is there a way to stop that, to hinder that?
Well, you just do it by not having the humidity too long, you know.
Well, but I mean, if it starts to root like that, can you snip any of those off with like nail clippers or something?
I don't think you'd need to. If you just suddenly greatly reduce the humidity, they should slow down, I hope, you know. If you needed to, you just have to be incredibly careful in doing that, you know.
And then, let's say you've got your graft and it's what you want. When you plant that plant, that graft is not in the ground.
Has to be above the ground.
Okay, so
Or you've defeated
typically,
the
I mean,
entire
people
purpose of-
plant tomato plants too deep anyway, but I mean, way deep in the ground, that,
I'm a big fan of of sticking overgrown tomato plants way deep in the ground. I think that's a good plan because they're up there waving
for
and
a
stuff.
grafted plant,
Not for a grafted
obviously.
plant, not at all. They got to be well above. And for us, we have to change our game plan because right now we're burying our tomato stalks, renewing the plant all the time, getting incredible production from doing that. That's not going to work for grafted. So we'll have to compare and see. Maybe we'll decide we get more vigor from burying the stems and it's not worth grafting. But last year it looked like it was worth it, you know. So instead what we're going to have to do is have these guys on fabric so they can't grow through, or have them on a mulch so they can't reroot, you know, because we're going to want to lower them, you know. It'll save us a bunch of work. It's a bunch of work to bury those stems, you know. And so it might be a plus, you know. It's going to be a mass of stems on the ground because we run those things for 6 months, you know. I mean, but that's okay. That'll be fine, you know. And indeed, I've learned that you don't even take those leaves off. As long as they're not looking like they're having a problem, they're photosynthesizing, they're producing. So you have this mass of leaves on the ground. And if you start to see disease, you take them off. But a dear friend, unfortunately, recently passed, Bob Carnegie, taught me years ago that there's a healthier aspect down low for tomatoes. He actually believed that one way to fight blight was to let your plants lay on the ground because there's more carbon dioxide down there. And of course, carbon dioxide is like oxygen for plants, you know. I mean, they really thrive the more they get, you know. So there will be more carbon dioxide down low, and that might be a plus for those leaves. So far, I haven't seen disease issues. We've ever done it, like we just didn't have time to drop them. And it used to be that people would come in and just strip all the leaves off before they dropped them. And I learned right away that that was reducing production. As soon as flavor too. We grow a hybrid that Johnny's come out with that's been crossed with something like Cherokee Purple called Monero. And to me, for a greenhouse tomato, a hybrid, best flavor of any hybrid. You know, if you let those get dead ripe and grow them well with good nutrition, they sure as heck aren't a Cherokee Purple, you know. But they're way better than any hybrid greenhouse tomato. And so I was bragging about that after we'd done it that way and had somebody taste it, and he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I tasted it, and it didn't taste any good at all. And I thought, why? And I went back and looked, and of course, before we lowered that plant, we'd stripped all the leaves off. So now these plants have to produce with a third of their leaves gone, you know. And so I convinced our guys, you know, we leave those leaves on until the plant's regrown up to the top. And then if we need to, we strip the leaves off and bury before we lower again. That way we're never setting a situation up where the plant has, you know, a full plant's worth of production, but it's lost a third of its leaves. You know, that's going to slow production, reduce vigor, and to me, very importantly, make the tomatoes taste like crap. You know, I mean, I don't know if you figured it out, but there's a direct relationship to the fact that the best tasting heirlooms are the lowest producing. There's more leaves to put flavor into those tomatoes, you know, so you're not going to you can't have both, you know, or it's harder to have both. I mean, maybe you can, but you have to be an excellent husband person, you know, to accomplish that. Husbander, I guess, would be a way to do that in a non-sexist. Okay, so when you factored those things in, you know more how to play with it. Yes, you have room to be in different places on the stem if things aren't perfect, which they're plants. It's nature. Perfection will happen once in a while, and you'll just love those moments. May they be your most demanding moments otherwise, you know. But there'll be plenty of times that as growers you're going to have to adjust a little bit, you know. So you can adjust on where it is on the stem, but don't overdo it. You get too low, you're going to be in trouble, you know. That's it. And don't lose track of where your graft is, you know, because you could bury it and then you've lost all of the purpose for doing it, you know. All right, so there are different kinds. There's generative and vegetative grafts. And this, I know this because I read the handout, so you can read it too, but I'm going to tell you it now, and then you can review it when you read the handout, right? The generatives are basically, if you're looking at like a 6-month crop, they say like 15 clusters. And really, if you're growing outdoors, they're going to put more energy into the fruit. And given our blight and all that, that's probably the way to go, you know, because you're not likely to get them to go. You're not going to get them to go 6 months outdoors. That's for darn sure, you know. And you're not likely to get, without cover, more than 15 clusters anyways. So put all your energy into production. we're going to work with MaxiFort because this is for the greenhouse. Now I might get some generative ones for the ones we do outside, you know. And I just figured that out while I was telling you, which is a good reason to teach a class, you know, because I was, you know, always, of course, you know, and I almost always learn from the students too. That's the joy of classes, you know. But yeah, like I was thinking we just do the MaxiFort. That's what people do. But for an outside crop, the generative ones are going to be better. But MaxiFort is really aimed at indoor covered production, something production that might go 6 months, or for greater heat. That's perfect because these are going to go to Florida. So the MaxiFort will be fine, you know, at that stage when they get there, when it'll be starting to warm up. But then they should go. These are also varieties, with the exception of one or two that, you know, people just love. So even though they're not as heat resistant, we're going to get down there. But there are also varieties like Creo and Homestead, ones that are designed to take the heat. So I'm hoping, this is the first time we're going to do it, that they're going to be amazed at the vigor they get, because they're going to have the rootstock that's designed to take the heat and stay vigorous in the heat, which is critical for tomato production, and the tops that do it too. It should be a huge innovation for them, you know. And I'm looking forward to hearing back from them what we accomplished. So I'm counting on us all to be very good grafters tonight, you know. And if not, I'll just start over again. But so vegetative, if you're talking undercover, and you know, even undercover without heat, 6 months is going to be pushing it. You can do it. It's going to take getting them in early April and using layers of protection inside your cover, you know, and then you can literally do it. You can get these guys to make it, you know. Right now, you'd have to graft, you know, sow your seeds tomorrow and start grafting probably to get in early April, you know. But, you know, you could do it. You could even, you've got a week to order from Johnny's, you could still fit it in. But you'd have to jump right on it, you know. And I encourage that because you can keep them going. If you can close that greenhouse up, simply close it up, you can keep them going until probably the end of October into November. And if you have the MaxiFort vigor, you should get some incredible production, you know, for a long time. And then, of course, you know, come to our class on using the trellises, you know, or we just read Johnny's. We didn't have a class. We just did it, you know. That's, you know, but that's why you have classes, because then you don't have the mistakes that we learned, you know. But, you know, we've now learned, and we're totally enthused about it. It's definitely the way. And there was some, by the way, there was some, you know, I don't know, let's try them staked too. I think staked are better. And then this year everybody got it, you know. Even with the double stake, we're taking to, like, you know, we have such vigor in our greenhouses that we grow tomatoes that we can stake them so that the stakes are up like this. We attach one stake to another with a screw gun, right? And everybody looked at that and looked at how the ones that were done like that did compared to the ones on the trellises. They're all like, we're only doing trellises for indeterminate tomatoes in a greenhouse, you know. The production is so much greater. Those other ones always, they go past that, then they start coming down, then they knock the whole thing down. We've had entire rows collapse that way. You know, it just doesn't work. You need to have them hanging from above. You need, of course, to make a solid structure for that. But that's a future class, right? That's just this thing.
Not to change subjects, but what about trying to grow on a structure outside? Is it feasible to do that?
Oh, I'm sure it's feasible to do it. But you're going to bother to make a structure in this climate, cover them, you know? I'm assuming you're an organic grower. If you're a conventional grower, then you have poisons that I don't even know about that might help you to go further, you know? Yeah, exactly. No. But I can also tell you that there was a year when my neighbor brought me tomatoes, because ours were gone because of the late blight. It was such a bad year, right? And he brought me tomatoes saying, I knew you'd want some. I looked at them, I didn't want to eat them. It was already in the vascular system. They had late blight in them, you know? He was hopeful. His were gone about 2 days later, 3 days later. You know, the only ones that lasted for a significant time longer were biodynamic, and even they went down in that bad a year. I think it was probably 2003, I think. It was just one of those horrible, horrible years when it rained nonstop for like 2 weeks, you know, and was cool. And that's called the Irish potato famine. You know, I mean, that's what happens, you know. So if you're gonna bother to make the structure, you might as well make that structure be strong enough hoops to support tomatoes and cover them. You know, it's just like, you know. But if you're not convinced here, watch my disease class, you know, and you'll see it. And if you talk to any commercial grower probably that's doing tomatoes in the mountains, I'll bet you that they either have moved to cover or they sure as heck want to, you know, because it's just way too hard for any significant investment. Now, if you're just doing home growing, I think it's probably still worth grafting, you know. And you can get major production And you could still do, yeah, I mean, it'd just be a couple strong posts and a cable, and you can definitely do the trellises anyways. But I'm going to bet that the blight makes the trellis superfluous, you know?
Right.
You're not going to keep them alive long enough for that to matter.
And you're not gonna get a higher production due to the trellis, you're just gonna get higher production due to the rootstock.
Yes, right, yeah, yeah. But if you go to that cover, then all of a sudden it's worth it. Then you might think, okay, not generative, but vegetative, you know? And that's it. And frankly, I haven't even learned the varieties of generative yet because it wasn't until I started teaching this class that I realized I want to do that too. I thought, we're just doing maxifort, you know? But I realized every year we plant rows of mostly determinate tomatoes, you know, things like Defiance, you know, but I think Mountain Magic is actually an indeterminate, you know. We plant those outside, and we might as well do them with this because it'll give us more production. And we keep them going pretty long because we really use a lot of, you know, we use a spray regime that works, and we do compost tea all the time. So we keep them going pretty long, and if they've got the generative, we should get much higher production, you know, before the blight takes it down, you know. And indeed, Mountain Magic with increased production could be pretty revelatory if you like a tomato this big. Would that they can get those genetics into a tomato that big, you know. It's by far the most resistant. All right, so enough about the theory of it. Is there any questions so far? Does everybody understand how it's done and how to get to the point where we might actually do a graft? Okay, and remember the key one, which is water the day before. You know, if you don't, just wait another day. You know, it won't work as well. You know, I did a little test and I got like 2 to work out of like 12 that I did. You know, the rest all separated. You know, and I think I stuck them back on. You know, and it looked like maybe they were going to make it, but in the end, they weren't good grafts.
And then if you got 2 out of 12, but then you watered the day before, what kind of percentage did you get?
Oh, then I got more like
8 out of 12?
I think it was something like that, yeah.
Okay.
And that's, you know, I think actually,
Big difference.
I think actually people who've done it more than me, I don't want to say, I mean, last year was the first year. I tried it the year before, and that was the year I watered everything off, you know. And then last year was the first year that I really did like extensive trials, you know. So I don't think, you know, I don't think that my skills are like way high up, but it doesn't really matter because your skills aren't going to be way high either. I'm going to show you the technique. The technique is a technique, you know. And then just what's going to make your skills perfect is going to be how to do it, you know. And indeed, I bought every tool I could to make the technique totally controlled. You know, you can save money, and we could actually look it up in the Johnny's catalog, which I brought up. Did somebody grab it? Okay, yeah. We could actually look it up, but it was not cheap. It was might have been $30 or something. But I bought a tool that makes it that you always get the exact same angle cut. You know, and that's good for me because that's not one of my skills. You know, I mean, actually, if I do it tons of, I'm just a slow. You know, of course, it's anybody's skill. You do it often enough and you get it. You know, but I'm real slow at that, and I would have a bunch of bad grafts. So I simply bought the tool. You know, simply. A razor is all you need. They actually recommend the old-fashioned double edge because they're the thinnest. Mm-hmm. They recommend breaking it in half. I recommend taping the broken in half end. You know?
Well, it's just better grip.
Yeah.
You got a wider surface.
Yeah, right, yeah. But not very big because you got to go through that, you know, and get that entire cut. But this makes it very precise. What I love about this, I'll just keep changing the angle for you so maybe you can see. Those grooves are where the stems go, you know.
And so, we're getting ahead, I guess. You're putting both stems in at the same
No,
time.
not at all. No, it's just different thicknesses. I'm going with the smaller one, you know, that's all.
Why? I mean, it seemed like it.
No, you only do one at a time. Trying to do 2 at a time would be, but see, you can still get the exact same cut because this determines it, you know. I mean, you want to try and put 2 tomatoes together and cut them at the same time, you'd think you're a better guy than me, you know. That's not my game.
Well, I mean, as far as with that machine, but I mean, or that tool, if you had a tool that one stem came from one end, the other stem came from the other end, and they slightly overlapped, and you cut them both at the same time, you've got the perfect cut for those 2 to join, do you not?
Yeah, I don't see how this would be any different, but
Okay.
I mean, if you do, tell me, I might try your technique. How would it be different? If this keeps the exact same angle, you can get the same angle cut no matter what, right? And that's all that matters is the angle, right?
Well, if it holds it in there exactly the same way every time, then.
Yeah, well, if you make sure that it's in that groove, and it's straight in that groove, which by the way is not as easy as I'd like it to be, because of course not all of these are straight, but you can do it. You pay attention and you just insist. And indeed, I practiced teaching one of my fellow growers, and I realized I have to emphasize, get it in that groove perfectly, because he of course forgot about that and was ready to cut it not in the groove. So you all get, right, that you're not doing it right until the tomato stem is in that groove perfectly. Okay? Then if you cut it and then the next one is in that groove perfectly, you have the exact same cut. And to me it's a lot easier than trying to pull two plants together and slice through them at the same time. In fact, I'm not sure that you would.
I haven't, so I'm
Yeah,
going to
you
go
can pass it
with
around. I'm not sure that you wouldn't, as you were going through, slightly move one and then end up with a slightly different cut, whereas this guarantees you. And it's when I get them to sit and I got the magnifying glass, I can have them, so I have to look really hard to see where the cut is. They fit perfectly. Not every time. I mean, the man I was teaching, Rocco, his somehow or another he ended up with it a little shy, so that there was a little bit of top that it didn't go on. It doesn't really matter. The reason this is at so great an angle is that there's enough surface area that some, of course the vascular system is on the outer edge, right? That some of that vascular system connected with the vascular system of the other one. It's just like a graft when you're doing trees. You don't have to have total connection, you need some. And then the plants will figure it out. They'll heal that wound and solve it, But the ideal is to have every bit of it, And usually, I mean, this year, maybe not as much last year, but this year, I was able to get it every time. It helped that I got a magnifying glass to confirm that. Before I couldn't really tell. So if it didn't look right, I can go back and kind of tweak it, Just play with it.
Is there different size tips for different, or does every plant that you do have to be that specific?
This is designed for those two sizes. Yeah, right. I mean, there may be other ones you could do, But I mean, doing this at a smaller stage is going to be easier on the plant, And indeed, if this was a repeat class, I would say let's cut a lot of the foliage off a bunch of these and then not cut off a bunch, because there's two ways. And I personally favor taking a lot of foliage off, because why make the plant try and support all this leaf which isn't producing for it, right? You have it in the dark, Why put all that stress on it? Whereas, there's definitely some shock to a plant to cut the leaves off, but I don't think it's as much as making it try to support, so much leaf area. So I would take off a fair amount of the leaf, and that, gives you a better chance. Yeah, what I tend to do, and
What is this approximate angle, do you know? Is it 60 degrees?
I think it's probably more like 60, yeah, I'm guessing. So the first thing I do with anything I'm doing in this process, because you've got a weakened plant, right, is go for sterile, So hydrogen peroxide is my preferred way to do that. They recommend a bleach solution. Bleach is, not the best thing in the world. So
You just wipe that with your
I know, I realized I'm going to go back and do it again. Right. You caught that, did you?
That's an assumption.
I caught that too, yes, right. Now the truth is, this time of year, the likelihood of me having tomato pathogens on my hands pretty low, But yeah, we're going to be doing that too. But right now,
So you're just going to trim foliage now?
yeah. So let's take one plant close to everybody. This is how I do it, because I don't want to spend my time carefully cutting everything off. So I just do that, and then I probably do. And that just reduces what I have to do a whole lot. Some people actually take it down to where it's nothing but the one little leaf.
Oh, really?
To me, that's just too much time, But I'm quite happy to do it this way. It also takes, except for, this isn't the one we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing those, but I'll let you do that, But just for example, you might even do it more extremely. You might do it like that. Still, you have the little leaf, That's probably better, Plus, you don't have to then go back and do the secondary cuts on the cotyledon, So you can do that pretty quickly, and I just do everything you're going to graft, I just do them all at once. So you no longer had to worry about this, keeping it sterile,
What's it?
It's a Johnny's Harvest knife with a wonderfully serrated blade. It's my favorite farm knife. This works great. I have it, anybody that's ever farmed with me knows I have it on all the time. It's a rare time I don't have this knife, and it's like I'm missing a part of my body if I don't have it, People say, you got your knife? I go, no, I don't. What? It's like, I have to take it off when I go to places like Asheville, because it's actually probably illegal. It wouldn't be if it wasn't serrated. Because it's serrated, it's considered more dangerous. And once in a while I forget, because I'm a farmer. I try to, and then I can leave it in my car and forget it that way. Anyway, just be careful with it when you do that, okay? So we'll be doing these here, And I'm going to Yeah, that for me is a pretty perfect height. I can, I don't have to bend real far to see it, you know. It somehow got it out of the light though. There, I think the light's better there.
Those 120s, the plugs?
These are 128s, yeah.
128.
Yeah, yeah. And for grafting, I like that pretty well. I mean, I'm not looking to get a lot of growth out of this. I want a healthy plant, And then if I needed to, I'd step it up. And frankly, I might. I'm thinking for that greenhouse, I'm going to try grafting. But the seeds, for some reason, got here late. I mean, Johnny's usually has them here really fast. We ordered them last week because I thought I need to start them right away. I want to have big plants by early April. So I'd like to get them started here and then be able to step them up and get at least 2 weeks in a four-pack size plant, So it's a really good sized plant when it goes in the ground, because the bigger it is, I can easily keep it warm on a table, but then I can get it out when I don't have to work so hard to keep it warm. And the bigger it is when it goes in the ground, the sooner I'm getting a yield, And I just want to push that. I want to come, as far past 6 months as I can, So they should be if they go in the ground in April, that's 4 months, So yeah,
Soil temperature is so important for tomatoes.
I don't know that it's nearly that important if you have some, if you're in a greenhouse and you have, that's totally, this is about putting them out in a greenhouse for sure. Yeah, no, I don't bother to put tomatoes outdoors until everybody says May 15th. It's like, boy, you haven't been in the mountains as long as I've been, May 15th is like, yeah, if you got more tomatoes to come back with later, My friend at Troy's greenhouse, he just laughs and says, well, they can buy the next round from me too, Because people are just like, the first warm week, and they just, and he tells them, but they don't, believe him, and then they just got to plant them again, So if you're going to the ground outdoors, I'd recommend raising the temperature and being ready to protect them. I recommend fabric and a cloche over them to get the soil temperature up real good, and then coming back and being ready to protect them if you're putting them in, any earlier than, in my mind, the beginning of the 3rd week,
Of May.
Yeah, yeah. That's when I begin to feel confident, And I don't mind at all if I'm outdoors if I don't get them into early June. I find that they really aren't doing a whole lot anyways. Usually, once in a while you got a year that's different, and usually you can tell that. It seems so settled, and I think 2011 was that way. It just was very, very warm. We never had much of a winter. And so we had all kinds of things in way earlier, and we got earlier yields, yeah, but you can't count on that at all in the mountains, Okay, so now I'm going to sterilize this guy. Okay, then the first thing I'm going to do is and we're going to have to all do this, right? You're going to try and find pretty equal-sized rootstocks. And I'm looking right here, and this one look pretty equal to me. So I'm going to pop it out. We can put it next to there and compare, and I can get your opinion, right? This is great because I have more than my own eye for figuring that out. And I recommend doing this. It's just like you really want this to be in as good a condition as you can get it. It's tempting just to pull them out. They usually work. But you don't want to stress the plant any more than you have to. You've already stressed it by cutting the top off of it, So you don't want to do more than that. So then I'm going to stick it there, slide it in there. And see, maybe what I'd recommend, since they always sink, is I'd have a little bit of soil in there. And that just gives you a little bit more time for it all to work. And if you're ahead, it doesn't matter. This plant hadn't hit the bottom yet, but I could transplant it if I needed to. If I was using the same care, Usually growers try and get it, though, on production where the root ball is perfect because it makes it a lot faster, But then again, it might be that they're looking at 2 weeks of rain, they got a dry spell, and then they got to work the other way. Horticulture is science and art, And the science of it would be to have the perfect root ball, but then there's also watching the weather and making sure you can actually get it done, So what do y'all think?
You've got the experience eye. It looks pretty close to me, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at 90-foot poplar trees most of the time.
Yeah, really, I said it to some of the first people here. The hardest part of this is eyesight. This is the hardest part. And indeed, I'm not sure, maybe they've got magnification systems in that business, but otherwise, I'm not sure that it's a good career. Because it's not good for your eyes to work that hard and doing it all day long. They probably do, though. They probably have figured out that, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's probably really,
I probably would have
Yeah.
Opti-visors.
Yeah, right, yeah. And I could have bought one of those. I went for this because of the light, But I realize now that the light, it's going to take some major work to get that light to work. And this kind of light's good enough. I just have to get, I realize I have a 500 watt halogen light. I'm just going to plug that in when I'm doing this, and then I'll have all the light I need,
You won't be in a long sleeve shirt.
Yeah, no, I know, totally, yeah, right. And that's okay, they can handle that. So I'm going to do the rootstock first. And of course, I don't have to worry about that. Really, I didn't need to save this root ball because that root ball is toast,
That's right.
I will ask somebody to take this and put it and plant it for me once I cut it off down there. Okay, so I'm going to line this up again. I think this was the way you could see it better, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I can see it there.
I have to take my glasses off to be able to do this. Okay.
And you feel good about that height?
Oh, I feel fine about that height. Just
Okay.
below the cotyledon is what they recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this looked matched up well enough that I didn't feel I had to make some major adjustments, So now if somebody would do me a favor, I don't want to get my hands in that dirt, but if they'll just like kind of basically poke that in a little more and then firm it.
You're hoping that's going to grow.
Well, these guys are still alive,
Okay.
I should cut the
When
top.
were
They were done, I think this here was done about a week ago and these two were done the other day. Probably for Wednesday, I think they were done. Maybe Thursday. I think it was Thursday because it was right before I got sick and Rocco was saying, well, we're supposed to get between 2 and 24 inches.
And we did.
Yeah, we got between 2 and 24 inches. It's closer to 24, but. Okay, so now I'm going for this one. Everybody saw how I got that, right? Okay. And now I need one of my little clips. Thank you. Up, get it back in there. Now, if that was straight, it would be more obedient. There is a much bigger clip, and I might try that next time. And also, I do wish I'd cut the tops down on this a little bit, because it would make it easier right now. I realize that's one more reason to do that. Those cotyledons were getting in my way for doing this. Now, I don't think that is right. I think I see a gap already. But I'll use this to be sure. Tell myself how to adjust it. Yeah, it's not at all touching. Okay. That looks much more promising. I think I've got it, but I'm going to give everybody the magnifying glass, come in and take a quick look and see if you think you got it. And then Lisa, maybe you can try, I can turn it the other way and you could try shooting through the magnifying glass to see if you can see. Can you see any gaps there?
I might need my glasses go on top of the magnifying glass.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is the nature of this. And so, by the way, I'm still learning this. Farmers can do flats in like 15 minutes. This gets easier as you're doing it, Farmers who've been doing this kind of production for a long time, So you know what you're looking for, right? You're looking to see
Looking to see if the two slices
Yep.
are matched.
Yep, that's right, exactly.
And I don't know enough about it to tell, but
You would see a gap, where right at that, about at the middle of that thing is where you'd see it.
The stems are good where the cuts. I think I can do better.
Who's next?
Oh, yeah, if you're looking this way, you get a much better view and it looks good.
Okay, good. All right. So that's a tip. You know what? I'm going to re-sterilize this knife and cut that cotyledon out of the way so people can look that way without banging the plant. You want to be careful not to bang the plant. Of course, it's totally delicate at this moment. By the way, something I forgot to mention, greenhouses, if you're doing this in a greenhouse, they have fans going, turn them off. No wind, right? Remember, no full sun, right? All those things are stressors to these plants. You've just cut the top off of a plant, you know? What do you think?
Did you put it on, I couldn't tell, did you put it on and then slip the top in? Or-
Yeah, I held it open and slipped. Here, let me cut this off. So, because he thought that, I'm sorry, what was your
I
name?
think that's,
It's easier to look from this side, you can tell more quickly.
I
Yeah.
could see better.
Yeah, well, you actually don't have the plastic hiding it for you, you know? So what was the question now?
When you were doing it, you opened up the clip,
Set it on the bottom,
set it on the bottom.
held it open,
Held it open.
and
then
so, yeah,
slid it.
yeah, no. If you have it right, once you close it, you wouldn't be able to get it in there, you know?
Right.
Yeah, because it wants to grip it,
Tell what
yeah,
you
yeah.
were doing.
So it's better to do. I'm going to leave this like this so we don't have to sterilize it. Please, everybody be aware there's a loose blade there, okay? All right. Yeah.
If you practice tying
I can put it back here.
flies for trout fishing, then this would probably become pretty.
Yeah, okay, so there you go. I need some trout fishermen to do my grafting. I'll take a trout fisherman, you know, I'll trade them tomatoes for grafting, and then later on, once I'm paid them off, I'll trade them tomatoes for trout.
So you kind of squeeze this.
You got to get it dead center in the middle in order to get it even. You know, that's my problem was I was getting it so that the bottom wasn't open all the way.
Right.
It has to be open all the way.
That's
you
a
know?
tough clip.
That's a tough clip. Okay, so you came in a little late. These are easier to work,
Yeah.
and they got the
okay,
same
that's what
size there.
I've seen before.
But the problem is you can't see as well.
Oh,
You know, that minimal.
can't see with
Yeah.
your
And the
connection
other nice thing about this kind is they drop off.
Is everybody seeing?
on their own.
Okay, everybody got a good look? All right, so that's how you do it. Do I need to show again, or are people ready to try it? Okay. Okay, so let's just trim. Do people want to practice on trimming the tomatoes? No, I know that's Maxi Fort. All the ones down at that end are Maxi Fort, you know.
That's good stuff. Is there any advantage, or, I mean, have you tried using a pair of scissors? Doesn't make a good enough cut.
Oh, no, I think scissors are fine. I have this. I use this for everything.
Okay.
You know, if you want to go sterilize some scissors, use scissors. I don't care. You know, no.
I'm just curious.
No, there's no. I don't claim any.
Knife guy.
Yeah, I don't want to carry scissors and knife. This is more versatile. You know, actually, one of our growers,
Yeah.
Wade, our intern, he had these really neat little scissors that he got from Johnny's, and he used that instead of a knife all year long. He made it work almost as well as a knife for most things. You know, he had a hard time cutting winter squash off the vine. With you know? That's where, you know. But there were a few applications where the scissors were easier. So if people want to just, and see, I'd even skip this one. I think it's too small for anything we have, you know. So look at the stem and see if it's worth doing, you know. That one probably is worth doing. You can probably find something small enough in here to put it to. But I'd leave this one go. This one's already been done, so you don't have to worry about that. And by the way, if people want to practice more, we're going to quickly fill those cells up, and then we'll have these tops that we cut off, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll have used these tops, which means these bottoms will be available for practice with the Maxi Fort tops. So you get to do more than just what's here, you know? And I, you know, frankly, I have enough to practice with that right now. If you guys wanted to practice with all of these instead, that'd be fine, you know? All right, so somebody can do this one and then just come up and do these. I think this one here you can probably do good, but if it's really skinny, then just let it go, you know, because we're probably not going to match it to this. By now, I've actually gotten these to get ahead of these a little bit, okay? So each person just take a shot at trimming down one plant. You don't have to remember, it doesn't have to be your plant. I'm sure everybody can just,
Can I work from this side?
no, I'll turn it around, okay? But I want to start with these so I can keep them all labeled. I don't want to have, you know.
So I'm just grasping these leaves
Yeah.
and then slicing
Mhm.
away.
And that one I've done. You can actually do it again, but
Well,
as long
I'll
as you
go
leave the
here.
only the little growing part, that's fine, you know. Yeah, you don't want to cut the very center where the small growing leaf is, but everything else can come off. The more the better, actually, as long as you don't get your fingers number one and that growing leaf number two.
Did you get the growing leaf?
No, it looks like it's still there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Trash.
Yeah, it's trash, yeah, totally.
somewhere.
Just drop it there and we'll
Okay.
take care of it in the end.
Somebody else, grab a hose, bring it to you.
Yeah, I probably would do a different technique only because,
Yeah, but you're doing this one, remember, you're gonna stay in this, okay, I'm sorry, get that end, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
isn't that what we're supposed to do?
You're right, I'm
Not
wrong.
much
done this
left.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That one we thought was too thin, so you'll go to the next.
Practice on it, right?
No, I'm gonna use that later, so don't cut it, you know.
So you want me to go?
Yeah, I want you to do ones that we can actually graft tonight, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because I have always the desire to use everything. Otherwise, most classes would just say, yeah, cut them all. But actually, I'm going to grow that plant out and then graft it later.
Got two at a time.
Did you talk about disease from being in a greenhouse? You know, like growing successions in a greenhouse?
Actually, this class is just about grafting. I did talk a little bit about
But
disease.
I meant about,
Oh, these create disease resistance for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
we covered that quite a bit. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I'll be happy to talk with you after a minute, Mark. Yeah, yeah.
That one's coming to visit, so I actually ended up probably doing two.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Just let the next person do it.
That is a sharp knife.
It is a sharp knife, yeah. And so keep your
Way it
fingers
slices.
out of its, you know.
Knives that aren't sharp are worthless.
Yeah, but this one is so sharp that if people don't listen really close to you when you first give it to them, because it's about 5 times sharper when you first get it. It's still wonderfully sharp, but when you first get it, it is like a razor, but it's got serrations.
Is there a problem if you wanted to go back in, since you sterilized your hands theoretically, and pinch off the cotyledon?
No, no problem at all. You could do that for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because they are big.
Yeah, they're in the
Take a
way.
lot of energy
Totally.
and-
Yeah, they take, and plus they're in your way. You know, I realize that it's definitely easier to have these trimmed back, you know.
A true surgeon there. Can you talk about how Johnny's is selling the grafted tomatoes now? Did you see how much they cost online?
Pretty pricey.
$30 a piece. Woo! That's without shipping.
Look at the work, you know. Now, there are people selling them cheaper, by the way. You can find them cheaper. Are we done? Everybody got one? You did. You want to do one? Okay. Well, we're going to need it done, so you might as well do it because you're going to want a trimmed one when you do it, I think. I'm going to come down heavily in favor of trimming them. That's my prejudice. I'm a long time sucker user. You know, like I take the suckers from tomatoes and start the next year. I always want to put tomatoes in that if I can keep them protected, right, so that they can grow in September and October. I want to plant tomatoes at the end of June, even if I'm not doing fancy other stuff, because your field tomatoes are always going to run out of steam by September. And if you got ones in June, they're just going to be coming into production. So rather than use seeds and the time of carefully doing it, I've got to sucker my early tomatoes anyways. I just sucker them and stick them in the soil, keep track of them, and then I've got another round of tomatoes to put out at the end. So when I do that, they're easy as all heck to sucker if and actually, are you still working from the same end? No, see, we want to be working from that end. So go ahead and do one at this end, because we're going to follow that order. We won't get to these tonight, probably. You know, that one's too skinny. So you want to find one that actually looks like it has a stem that matches this pretty much, that's coming this way that hasn't been done. Okay. And so I go ahead and I do the same thing. I take that sucker and I cut almost all the leaves off and just leave a little leaf. And then I stick it in the soil. I throw it under the bench for a day. I take it out and I water it and I get 100% take every time. If I didn't cut off those tops, I'd probably still get 100% take, but I'd be scared. You know, they'd be wilted all the time. They wouldn't look happy. And I'd be fussing over them. I'd be putting them back out of the sun and all that. But by taking all that leaf off, there's not much to support. And the vigor of the tomato at that time of year and the warmth, they just easily root, you know. So I'm a fan when I'm doing something that stresses a tomato from just, I do that with anytime I'm moving plants and I'm disturbing their roots, I figure always try and make the leaf be not demanding from the plant right then. So I'm a big fan of cutting it. So I'm gonna come down on that side. Johnny says people do it both ways and it works, and I've done it both ways and it works, but I made my decision tonight. I'm a partisan of cutting those things back. All right, I'm still gonna leave this. We might get to do more than one each. We won't though. No, in fact, if you need to go, does somebody need to leave right at 7:30? All right, okay, well then you do the first graft, okay? Yeah. So I use this clip, it's what I recommend, but if you want to use this one, you're welcome to it. It's the same thing, you know. This is just, you just have to get the feel for that. So the first thing you're going to do is pop out, and you're going to pop out the, that's, yeah, might as well practice popping that one out because that doesn't really matter. You're not going to use that root, you know? Yeah, sure. I'll give these clips to everybody. You can practice getting them right, okay? Because it is a little bit of a challenge.
What about doing them on larger tomato plants? I've seen videos of
Okay,
people
so-
doing them on much larger.
Here's the clip you use for that then. And I may not get to do all these, and I may be doing them on larger plants, you know? I did them on larger plants last year because I didn't have time to get to it, you know? So this is about the maximum size you're going to get to, okay? So that's the clip for,
Can you throw one down for a second in the water?
yeah. And I did it with the larger one, and it didn't close completely, so it's a little bigger yet. But did you see that size? Yeah.
It's way bigger than anything we've got here.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I actually like having the full range because I may get distracted and not get to finish it, and I can come back and do it that way later, you know?
Yeah.
Also, my game plan for growing the rootstock out, my other tomatoes may get way bigger then, you know? And so I can then come back and, you know, put the light to this and fatten it up, and still with that bigger one, play with this much later, you know? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna put the pot in. Does everybody want to use it at this level? I recommend it, you know, but you might not agree. So it can be whatever you're comfortable with at this point. You create the environment that you're comfortable for working in.
I want that bale of peat.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, I want that bale of peat.
Right.
Got out in the creek.
Well, go on down and get it. I can tell you right where it is, you know?
We drop it in here?
Yeah, is this too close for you? Should I take this out for now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So drop it in?
Yeah, just set it in, yeah, yep.
Can't, you're banging on the other one.
Sorry.
Okay, so you just want to come from the other direction next time, okay? Yeah. Maybe, you know what? You did it there, but for future, skip 2, you know? Yeah, yeah. All right. So here's your tool. Okay, now, wait a second. You took this from the maxi fort, right?
No, I actually took,
So then it's not going in.
right, because this
That's-
we need the maxi.
You got to keep track of which one's the bottom and which one's the top, okay?
That's what
This is an immediate mistake, you know? This is a classic. I made this mistake too. You know, which one's which? I don't know. You know. So now I have this weak plant that grows a lousy tomato. That was not a good plant. You know.
So I'll take one of these, Rootstock.
That's going to be your right. Yeah.
Yeah, not a
Yeah.
good dyslexic
And I
one.
think this is a good one.
And did you keep track of this top?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you planted it? No, it's.
No, I haven't cut it
Oh, you
yet.
haven't cut it. Okay, great.
Then
Great.
I'm gonna have to pull this out and put it in here.
All right. And what's this? This is from the one I cut.
Yeah.
Okay, this goes away. This will confuse us. There is no use for this, okay? Because
There you go.
it's not going to grow, okay? So it's just a source of soil, yeah. You're going to line it up really well in that bottom groove, right?
It looks like. Does anybody want to look at it before I slice?
You look good. Okay. All right.
Pop it in.
Yep.
Do you want one of these? What size you gonna use?
I would
You
try
gonna
this
use that one?
Yeah.
Did everybody get a clip to practice with?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I practiced a little bit. Oh, what size? Yeah, that size.
Did you get a clip to practice with?
I'm not gonna be practicing.
You're not going to actually do it?
I'm gonna try to tell all this to somebody else. I have a horrible, they call them essential tremor in any of this. I would be destroying.
Are you going to try it? Yep, I'll get you a clip.
Me too.
You want one of these?
Which one you want?
That's the one he,
The only one you need to practice with is the smaller one.
that's for what we,
Yeah.
size plant we got.
I think it's too tiny for these.
You think
The
it is?
diameter of this.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's why, okay.
Now, you said with these, you don't have to remove them.
Yeah, they'll
What
just,
happens to them?
they pop off as the thing grows.
They pop off.
No
Now,
kidding.
Yeah,
Those
well,
other
Johnny's told me that. I took them all off last year, but maybe they all wouldn't have come off when I watered if I hadn't. I don't know. You know.
Really?
Yeah, Johnny's, they say it right in here, they'll pop off, you know.
That's hard
Well, I
to
don't,
believe. That's a
it would be
tight,
to me too.
that's a
That's hard to
tight-
believe.
Well, it's,
Grass growing through a sidewalk.
plants
Oh,
are
I
pretty
know.
strong as they grow, you know.
But what about the other ones?
The other ones I don't think would pop off, though. They don't make a distinction, so maybe they do.
But the other one makes it real easy to take on and
Yeah,
off.
right,
Is
yeah.
that the, is that those?
Yeah. Those you don't need to practice with.
Mr. Pat, do you want to watch this one or?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
These are so easy to use.
Yeah, they are.
I feel like this one might be a little bit less challenging.
You said
It's
15
certainly
minutes
if
for a
you
whole
wanna try to
spray?
take it off, it
They get really good at it, you know.
look like,
I don't know if they use this groove, though. Maybe the pros don't bother with this. They get such a good eye. Actually, I bet they don't, you know.
I bet you're right.
Yeah. I bet they don't, you know.
If you've done it
As much as it can.
5,000 times.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Have you done it 5,000?
Nowhere near, yeah, no. I've not done it 200 times.
There you go.
Yeah, you know.
Does this have two different diameters you can?
You know, I wonder about that. That other one seems impossibly small. I don't think that I could see well enough to do that little tiny one, you know.
So you think it's the
No, I
bottom
think it
one?
is though.
Don't you?
Yeah, I think it is.
It may be,
I
yeah,
think there's two different
yeah. It may be,
dimensions.
but I wouldn't bother to try the little tiny one. I just can't see that well, you know. I have a hard enough time doing the bigger size, you know. Okay, you want the magnifying glass to confirm your take?
Confirm if I need a better prescription.
But that's about the same as the small one when you look at it.
Might be a little gap.
If there's a little gap, you can probably just slightly open it and push a little bit, you know.
Oh, no, I didn't look at the little one.
I don't know, I'm not sure if it'd be any better.
Yeah, there's a little gap.
So then just open it up and just shove it on. I had to shove mine in slightly more, you know.
Basically, you're just kind of
Pushing
pushing
it in.
your top
Yep.
and down a little bit.
It's crazy too.
Yep.
Start with a little
Taking that peak.
So for me, the magnifying glass is essential because I just can't tell,
Checked.
you know.
Now, if the bottom lid surpasses,
It's okay.
it's okay?
As long as it's touching,
It is
yeah,
touching.
you're good, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you were doing 10 for a home garden, you might just obsess on them and get them perfect, you know. And I recommend you do 15%, 20% more at least, you know. Maybe 50% more the first
When
time.
these are finished, like the first one's kind of drooping.
Yeah, well, that's why it would have been good to cut it off. You notice these won't droop as much. They're going to go into a germination chamber, 100% humidity.
Okay.
And they're gonna be fine.
And
And to get- Well, I guess since we're doing this, I can tell you real quickly. It's designed so I have
Which one?
a thermocouple on a thermostat in the air in a closed container that has a steel basin with a hot water heater element in it. So the temperature demanded is the temperature to make the air temperature 82 degrees. The water gets heated up enough to get the air temperature to that, which means it makes tons of steam to do that. Yeah, someone's got to do it. We haven't got time.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be doing this,
Okay.
I mean, she's gonna be doing
All right.
this, okay?
Just jump on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a brandy wine, so I put the stick right in front of
Okay.
it.
All right.
'Cause it was right here.
I see. All right. So actually, folks, if you can try to do the persimmon first, okay, and then we'll go to the brandy wine. And maybe now, I guess since that was done, we'll make the persimmon go this way. We'll go do all these this way, okay? So try and do persimmon so I can keep track of these. So did you understand what I said about the germination chamber?
Well, you are getting some kind of steam too, not just because,
It's totally steam. It's the hot shower effect.
Okay.
That's how you get the humidity.
okay,
Works wonderfully for seedlings.
okay.
If you watch our seed starting video, I mean, I had seeds that I got like 5% germination when I first made one.
But you
So I-
put the aquarium heater,
No, you use actually a hot water heater element.
a hot water.
Yeah, and it's everything is, all the information is on our website. Go to our seed starting, our first 2012 seed starting workshop and infrastructure and all. Do you remember the name of that one?
Seedling production,
Seedling production.
and then
it,
there's seed starting.
yeah, seedling production. It shows you all the infrastructure. So everything you need to do this, even the later on, the lights and the mats and everything, it's all in there, you know.
Off anyway.
I want to see your chamber.
Oh, I'll take you down there, no problem, you know.
You don't need to worry about that one to a verbal wrap so that we.
Yeah,
everyone
okay.
can keep-
All right, so because you can leave as we finish, I'm going to wrap this up, okay? But then I encourage everybody, if you can, to stay and actually do one, you know? And if you can't actually do one here, feel free to take, you know, a couple of the Maxi Forts home. are actually also these guys here. You know, you could take, somebody could take this little plat thing home and try, I'll give you a clip, you know, you can just try it at home, use a razor, you know. I mean, if you're a home gardener, you might not ever buy that little tool anyway, you know. All right, so, yeah, you want to do persimmon, okay? So find something that matches the persimmon that we cut. The little persimmon we're not going to do.
Well, he's
Okay.
already cut his rootstock, so he's gonna find something that matches rootstock.
All right, so,
It looks like that one would do it.
That might very well.
okay. All right, so what you have to do now, right, is if you're actually going to try and do this without Johnny's, then you need to photocopy this because it's got the information. I recommend you do it with Johnny's, you know. So the one thing is, maybe you all want to get each other's numbers. You might want to buy, if you're just doing small scale, you might want to buy these together, you know, because it's pretty pricey. And you could probably, you know, make do with 10 or 15 and just sterilize them each time, you know. All right, so once you've accomplished this grafting part, it seems like you guys are getting that pretty well, you know. It's precision, it's just taking your time. Then what you need to do is put it in a germination chamber, right? And then after about 5 days, take it out, use a dome. You saw the domes are right here, okay? Use a dome to maintain that humidity, okay? If you don't have a germination chamber, then just use a heat mat and have, you know, some water, some wet stuff underneath so that the humidity stays up. It'll probably stay up there pretty well. You know, you'll be able to tell by how they're doing if you have to raise the humidity, okay? But then as you take it out, you start to crack that dome. First you just take it out, and that's going to be reduced humidity right away, right? And if it looks like it's starting to wilt, then it goes back in. But you take it out a little longer every time until it can stay out. Once it can stay out, then you start cracking the dome, so you're reducing the humidity until finally the plant, right? I'm sorry. You
No matter
put,
which part of the tape,
yeah,
right?
put it on the bottom one first, and then slide into the top
Right,
one.
but does it matter which way, like, the angle is facing with the pointy side up?
I find it a
to
lot
the
easier for,
outside,
for me to have the clip go on the high side,
high
so
side?
I can see the
Okay.
short side, because that's the interface I want to be able to see,
Okay.
you know. Not that I can see it very well, you know. So then, right, you're going to slowly reduce the humidity to normal humidity, and as you're getting that humidity close to normal humidity, you're going to start to introduce light, okay. And if you get Johnny's, they'll tell you exactly how much light, but I actually recommend a shop light, a warm and a cool bulb, and just play with the closeness. You know, first off, the first time you have that light, it'll be pretty far away, probably 18 inches. And there shouldn't be any wilting from that. Then you'll slowly lower it. If they start to wilt, you'll know to back off, you know. And so you're going to slowly introduce an absence of humidity back to normal, the humidity of the ambient humidity, and you're going to slowly increase light till eventually you have the ambient light, okay? Artificial light. You will not go to natural light until they're thriving under artificial light, okay? And then you do that, right? And you can see all that infrastructure on our seed production, videos.